Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I just want to give my review for the film Companion. I saw this one in the theater, and I'll give you my non-spoiler thoughts really quick, and then I'll give you a spoiler warning, and then go into spoilers. Because I've been watching some other reviews on YouTube, and I've seen mostly positive things, but now there are some reviews that are starting to filter in that are leaning more negative or kind of mixed or whatever. And it's interesting to me because of how they're defining the movie. And I feel like there's a theme in this film that's really being missed by a lot of people, especially the ones giving it negative reviews. I don't think they are completely understanding the underlying themes of the movie, but I'll get into that with spoilers. But my non-spoiler thoughts are that I loved the film. I went to go see it with my mom. We both had a great time. She was like, my mom was just like kind of like giggling throughout this thing, which is rare for her because, a lot of movies today just aren't that funny. But this film was legitimately hilarious in certain scenes. I mean, I was laughing, she was laughing. It was just a really fun time. Um, so, this movie, it stars, you got Sophie Thatcher, who was in Heretic, which I loved that film as well from 2024. We've got Jack Quaid, which you know from The Boys, and I think he's just a hoot. He's got so much charisma, just like his dad and his mom, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. And then you got Lucas Gage. He's kind of he's kind of the one that's not getting talked about in this movie enough, but his character was awesome. You got Megan Surrey and Harvey Gullin and Rupert Friend, and you got a few other people in here as well. Mark Menchaca, who he's in this movie called Alone, which is another really good thriller type film. You should check that one out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, the cast, everybody does an excellent job. Like I said, it's got a perfect blend of comedy and horror and thrills and romance and other themes and stuff going on. So I gave it a 4.5 on Letterboxd with a heart. Because I just walked out of it and I couldn't have been more impressed. And I just found myself thinking about the film afterwards so much. And then I discussed it with my girlfriend, Allie, and then she went and seen it a couple days after I had. And she loved it. She gave it a 4.5 with a heart as well. And just really nothing but good things to say about it. The director is Drew Hancock, and this is his feature film debut. Besides this, he had worked on some TV and stuff, but I mean, the cinematography is beautiful. Like I said, the jokes land, the characters, I find them either relatable or I find them people that, I've seen in my day-to-day life. They all felt real to me. Sophie Thatcher just kills her performance because there's so much emotional depth that has to go into it. And, just check out the film if you haven't seen it. Now I'll go into my spoiler thoughts on it really quick. So spoilers. All right. So this film, I mentioned horror, romance, thriller, comedy, but it's also a sci-fi film too. And I think it's funny. I had it spoiled for me before I went in to see this movie. So I knew it because I went to go see Den of Thieves 2, which is a piece of shit. And it's a super boring fucking movie. And I went to go see that, and the trailer that played before it, of course, was for Companion. And then I saw Companion the next day, and I was like, damn it, I wish I hadn't watched that trailer. I should have walked out of the theater. But so I knew the twist and everything going in, and it did not hinder my enjoyment whatsoever. Not even a little bit. I still had a great, because that's what a movie, that's the thing. Even if you know the twist going in, okay, she's, a robot, she's AI. Like, if the movie's great, it's great. It shouldn't matter if you know the twist. Obviously, you would like to not know it going in, but the film's either good or it's not, and this film's really good. But I think a lot of people, just to kind of get in the meat of what I want to say, a lot of people are writing this movie off as a like Megan ripoff, Terminator ripoff, Subservience ripoff, like Killer Robot movie is what I keep hearing, and it's not that. It's really it has those themes to make it fun because obviously we're going into an AI era. But that's such a small part of what the film's trying to give you. What the film is really, and I can't believe nobody's talking about this. I've watched so many spoiler reviews and not that many people mention it. But it's actually about relationships and most notably abusive relationships. That's what it's about. It's that's what I took away from it. Sophie Thatcher, who plays Iris, who is an AI, she's a robot, and she's with Jack Quaid's character Josh, and Josh is abusive towards her. Now, technically, you could say, well, she's a piece of property, blah blah blah, but that's where you kind of get that like AI thing. We've seen that in other movies. I get it. But the core of the film is actually talking about abusive relationships and what they can do to you. And those are like the underlying themes. And I'll just get right into it. The scene where Jack Quaid and Sophie are sitting at the table and he has full control of her again, and he literally like puts the candle, he slides the candle down the table and tells her to put her hand there, and then you start seeing like a tear roll down, and Jack Quaid says to her, do you feel that? Does that hurt? And she says yes, and he's like, good, because at this point he's in full evil mode, like full-blown evil mode. At the beginning of the movie, you're like, oh, it's Jack Quaid, he's fun, he's funny, he's a really nice guy, kind of like his character in The Boys, he's a hoot. But then you get to this dinner table sequence, and she calls Jack Quaid out on his bullshit. Iris calls Josh out on his bullshit. And you just see this face switch because, he's never had anyone say like what she said, where she's like, oh, you just blame the entire world for all of your problems. And then she makes the penis remark too, or you got a below average dick size, and she like hits him in his ego, because this entire time she's been programmed to love him and feed him like all these compliments and tell him that he's perfect and he's the best. And finally she's had enough, and she's like, no, you know what? This is who you are. You're selfish, you're manipulative and controlling. And, she just calls him out. And that's when he takes out, his phone, and he takes her intelligence down to 0, which, if you've ever seen anyone in like an abusive relationship or anything like that, one of the things that happens a lot of times is the abuser wants you to feel stupid or lesser than, so that way he can control you, or she can control him, however we're gonna, this is obviously the male is like the bad guy in this situation, right? So, but in those types of relationships, they just want to control you. So they want to belittle you and make you feel stupid and worthless. And then that's when you get to the scene where he, hands her the gun and he tells her to kill herself, which sadly also is something that happens in a lot of bad relationships, where they get to the point where they can't see another way out, and they actually end their own lives, because they think that they can't find anyone else, they're worthless, they're stupid, and it's terrible. And like I said, this movie hits on all these themes throughout the entire film, though, too, like very subtly, and then it gets more and more aggressive. And then you get to the last scene where you know, Iris has the upper hand on Josh, and she has that gun, and she puts it right up to his chest, and he basically says, "Well, I know you're not gonna kill me," and he takes the gun from her, and he's holding it, and he's like, "I don't need a gun to control you," and he puts that gun in his back pocket in his waistband, and then he just proceeds to throw her ass across the room, and he's just beating her up and all this stuff. And I appreciate that they went there in the movie, because he's like, "Oh, I don't even need a gun to control you. I don't need a phone to control you." It's like, I know you love me and you can't live without me, so I can just get away with hitting you and throw you around and all this stuff. And finally you get to the end of the film, and he's got her on the ground, he's on top of her, and he's like, "Tell me you love me." And that's when she puts the electric corkscrew in his head, and she says, "Go to sleep, Josh." And it's such a great kill. But all of that stuff building up to those moments, I mean, that's real shit. That's what people go through in these like toxic relationships, abusive relationships. And you that's actually juxtaposed with the other two that are in a relationship, the gay couple, because it turns out that Patrick, played by Lucas Gage, is a companion himself, and his lover, Eli, they actually have like a normal, healthy, romantic, intimate relationship with each other, because Eli respects Patrick, and it seems as though Patrick loves Eli, even though I know he's programmed to. But when you get that scene where Iris triggers Patrick to remember like those moments of him being in a relationship with Eli and all this stuff, and then that's when Patrick sticks the taser in his mouth and he kills himself because he couldn't imagine living in a world without Eli, because that was his partner. And I thought that was a beautiful moment too, because it was kind of like this human connection that you could see, and you could feel it, because they gave those two, Patrick and Eli, a nice intimate moment beforehand, and they gave him like a little background story. That's another thing I love about the movie, is you do get a feel for the main characters, so it makes it more believable. And so I loved all that stuff. I thought it was great. But yeah, that's it. That's really just what I wanted to say. I don't want this video to go on too long. I don't want you guys to get bored or anything, but I felt like I had to get that out, because I keep seeing these reviews from people where they're just like, "Oh, it's Megan, it's Subservience, it's Terminator, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, no, it's not. That's the fun part of the movie. Like, that's to like kind of get you in the theater. But really the message is all about abusive relationships, toxic relationships, and that's the core of it. That's the heart of the movie. And like I said, there's so many other little things in there too that I could go into. I mean, because Josh is just such a dickhead in this movie, and he's played brilliantly by Jack Quaid. Just, like asking her, like, "What's the weather outside?" And like using her for sex. Like, you get multiple scenes where he's just on top of her thrusting, and then he just like, comes in 5 seconds, and then he's like, "Oh, well, that's it. I got mine." And then, she's like, "Oh, I love you so much, Josh," and da-da-da. And then Josh is like, "Go to sleep." "Go to sleep, Iris." And he just shuts her down or whatever. And it's like, there's so many of these things that tie into just like bad relationships. Yeah, that's what I think, the core of the movie is. It's not just another killer robot movie. I mean, it's got some of that in there, but she's not really even a killer robot herself. I mean, she does kill, but it's not really maliciously. It's more like self-defense. It's not like Megan, where she's just going around slashing people, or Subservience, or Terminator. It's not like that at all. So yeah. So those are my thoughts on Companion. Please let me know down below what you think about the film. And how you perceived it. Did you see those same things that I saw with the toxic relationships and abuse in relationships and all that kind of stuff? Did you see that, or what? Just let me know down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out. Companion rules.